Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to Cavs Insider, our continuing coverage from Cleveland Clinic Courts in Independence. It's day 3 of Cleveland Cavaliers training camp, and wanted to give you a little bit of a report on what we learned here today after talking to a couple players after practice. Karis LeVert first, and then Evan Mobley after that. And as usual, we heard from head coach J.B. Bickerstaff. Brendan Gulick and our brand new beat reporter, Spencer Davies, who's new to our coverage, but certainly not new to the Cavaliers writing scene. We are awfully glad to have Spencer on board. And so today is initiation day with us, but not for you. Let's jump right into it. J.B. Bickerstaff is trying to put together a team that I think is going to have stylistically a little bit of a different look offensively this year. And my biggest takeaway from the day was the comments that we heard from each of those guys along that route.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. And, I think the biggest takeaway from me would have to be that he's willing to go 11 deep. And I don't remember the last time the Cavs went 11 deep in a season if it wasn't for necessity. So you look at what he's got on the roster now, right? You bring in a guy like Ty Jerome. You bring in some guys like, you have a backup at the center position now with Damian Jones and Tristan Thompson, something that he wasn't really afforded last year when you had, Robin Lopez was there and not really much else. And Karis LeVert's going to have a little bit more of a defined role off the bench now, instead of being jerked around like he had been all season long last year. So I think that 11-man rotation news is going to be interesting just because it's going to give him a little bit of a break. And I thought it was interesting that JB talked about playing guys in 3 to 4 game blocks and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So should be an interesting thing to watch.
And I thought it was important that he clarified, look, an 11-man depth doesn't mean you're going to see 11 guys on the floor on any given night. He said it's hard to get guys the minutes that they need if you're playing 11 deep and you've only got a 48-minute game, but it's more along the lines of, hey, over the course of the season, whoever's in that 9-10 spot, at times may fluctuate with whoever was in the 11 or 12 spot, if you want to think about it on a depth chart. But it's clear he feels good about his depth. And look, there are a couple of really important pieces that have been added to this team this year that this team's expecting big things from, right? I mean, Max Strus is going to have a huge role. Georges Niang has to play a big role. Ty Jerome has a chance to be a really, really impactful player here. And so this is the time of year where you try to figure out how those pieces all fit together.
Yeah, and I thought the interesting part about yesterday's practice, talking to Evan today, Max and Evan were talking about how they could be similar to the Bam-Max connection that was in Miami. And Evan seemed super excited about just playing that dribble handoff game. We know he's going to be handling the ball a little bit more this season. So it's going to be really fun to see that kind of connection grow. And Max, equally as excited about it, just because he's somebody that the Cavs really haven't had before. Movement shooter. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about how guys have to chase him around the floor. And then you also have the threat of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, whether they want to shoot threes, whether they want to facilitate and drive and kick, whatever it may be. And they talked about wanting to play faster. So I think that Max being a threat to shoot a 3, but also just that off-ball movement that kind of creates a little bit of a chaos. And then Georges Niang, you just mentioned, he's going to be able to be a standstill shooter if he wants to be. And he's a 40% 3-baller. So that's a huge part of what this team brought in over the offseason.
I can't wait to see how that spacing kind of works itself out on the floor, because that word spacing, I feel like we've heard repeatedly from different guys. They clearly have a different philosophy on how they want to play. And they recognize that their defense is absolutely good enough to win an NBA championship. They need the offensive numbers to continue to climb. It's not way off, right? They don't have a long way to go, but on any given year, you've got to figure out how the different pieces are going to mix together. And I think there's a lot of optimism around, hey, we've got pieces that fit the style we think we want to play. And if they can get a little bit better spacing on the floor and they can hit some more clutch shots, which somebody like Max Strus has been brought in to do, there's reason for a lot of optimism.
40-plus games of playoff experience, too. I think that's another thing. You bring in a guy like Strus, you bring in a guy like Niang, who have been through the ringer. They've got a lot of postseason play in them. And that's very important to a team that's really trying to take that next step and just winning a playoff series. We can't put that kind of expectations, the championship expectations, especially with everything that's gone on around them. We know what happened with Milwaukee and the moves that they made. We know what's going on there with Philly. There's a lot. Boston doing what they did and bringing in Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis and the like, right? So there's a lot of competition that happened around them. But as J.B. Bickerstaff said, they're just focusing on riding their own wave. So the next step for them is to get to the playoffs and win a series and do it convincingly.
Kid Cudi, that's where that inspiration came for him this offseason in the whole ride your own wave thing. I love it. I think it's great. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the Cavs continue to build as the East has gotten tougher. I think it's no secret. Everybody around the league knows that the East has gotten really good. The Cavs think they got a little better in the offseason too. So it's going to be a lot of fun to follow this team. It's day 3 of training camp. They've got 1 practice scheduled for tomorrow. Then they'll be back at 2-a-days on Saturday. That's the schedule we've got so far for you. We'll continue to bring you coverage right here. Hope you'll join us regularly. CavsInsider.com, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so we can keep doing content just like this.